Good morning, sports fans! Welcome back to the Virgin Sportscast. My name is Joshua Hervey, and I will be talking about sports, and more sports because I love sports. So last night, before work, I had an online fantasy football draft with some friends, and I thought it would be cool to go through the first 24 picks and critique them. And then after that, I will give you my top 10 quarterbacks in order from 1 to 10, and I will tell you why. And then I will go to the Don't Bet On It segment, and that will be today's show. So now that I will be critiquing the first 24 picks of my draft last night, I better tell you it is pretty standard scoring, half a point per reception, and there's 12 teams in the league. I'm going to start with the number one pick, Adrian Peterson. You can't really go wrong here with the number one pick. And he's on the Minnesota Vikings. He's going to get his carries because he's the only person on the team that can do anything. He's a beast. Number two, Arian Foster. Now, Arian Foster was actually auto-picked, because there are some people that could not make the draft last night. So Arian Foster was auto-picked on ESPN last night, and they have him ranked higher. I don't think they update their rankings from injuries and stuff before, but Arian Foster, he's a good number one back, but he's just injury prone. You don't know what's going to happen. You don't know how long he's going to be there. You better have his backup, Ben Tate, if you have him. That's all I say. Number three, Doug Martin. That is a solid pick, although I think he's going to be a bust this year. If you heard me in my first segment, I told you that Doug Martin's age then declined 33%. And then also, Doug Martin, last year, 45% of his fantasy points came off of 25% of the games. So that's really inconsistent. Now, number four, CJ Spiller. I love this pick at number 4 because CJ Spiller is going to be getting all the carries, and the Bills have been running plays this preseason every 22 seconds, which means he's going to get like 25 to 30 carries a game or touches, and that's a really good value at 4. I think it's a smart pick, and besides maybe injury issues for CJ, I think he could do well this year. Number 5, Marshawn Lynch. This is a safe pick. Now, I think there's more upside players besides Marshawn Lynch, but at number 5, you know he's going to get you 1,200 yards, and he's on the Seattle Seahawks, which is a good offense. It's a well-rounded offense with Russell Wilson at quarterback. I like this pick at number 5. And then number 6, you have Ray Rice. I actually like Ray Rice, especially in a PPR league, because he gets a lot of receptions, and with the movement of Anquan Boldin to San Francisco, I think he is going to probably get more receptions this year, seeing as how Baltimore does not have a lot of wide receivers besides Torrey Smith, and I don't even know who their other running wide receivers are. So I like Ray Rice at 6, but I think he could have dropped a little farther, but 6 is not a bad spot. Number 7 was my pick. I had Jamal Charles. Jamal Charles fell to number 7. That's pretty good value at 7 for Jamal Charles. Yeah, he's injury prone, but he had a lot of upside last year coming off his injury. I had him on my team. He was kind of inconsistent, but he was on a terrible team. This year, he's under Andy Reid's offense. He's going to get double the receptions he had last year. He's probably not going to get as much rushing yards as he did last year, but with a half a point reception, I think it'll make up for the lost yardage in rushing. And then number 8, Trent Richardson. I think it's a high upside pick at 8, and everybody thinks he's going to be good this year. He did have injury issues last year as a rookie, so we'll see how he holds up this year on the Browns. Number 9, Alfred Morris. Alfred Morris was a solid straight runner, and he was a solid pick, consistent in his points every week last year. I had him on one of my fantasy teams, and he was a stud. Number 10, Calvin Johnson. You can't go wrong with Calvin Johnson. Calvin Johnson is the number 1 wide receiver, and he is on the number 1 passing offense. Well, he's on the number one offense that throws the ball the most, I should say. And he's going to get his touches. Number 11, LaShawn McCoy. Now, I like LaShawn McCoy at 11. They are running a play every 18 seconds in this preseason with Michael Vick at center. And that means LaShawn McCoy could touch the ball quite a bit. The only downside is he had a concussion last year, and anybody who has a concussion in the league has a 1 in 6 chance over anybody else who hasn't had a concussion to get another concussion. And number 12, AJ Green. I think it's a solid pick, although I think there's other wide receivers that are better than AJ Green. There's Dez Bryant, who I think is better than AJ Green. He's on a more well-rounded offense. AJ Green and the Cincinnati Bengals, he's their only receiver. They don't really have a running game this year. I mean, besides Jarvis Green Ellis and Giovanni Bernard, I really think it's a solid pick, though, at 12. Number 13, Steven Jackson. Now, Steven Jackson this is about where he should go. I think he's going to be a solid pick at number 13, and I think he's going to do well in Atlanta. Number 14, Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers should not have been the first quarterback off. Aaron Rodgers has been the first quarterback off a lot of leagues. Drew Brees is way better than Rodgers. I'm not knocking Rodgers, but Rodgers is the most hit quarterback out of the top tier quarterbacks just because of the offensive line is terrible. Number 15, Drew Brees. Drew Brees threw for 5,000 yards the past 3 years, and I think he can do it again. Sean Payton's back. He's got healthy players almost every year. He's got Sproles. He's got a lot of talent on that team to throw the ball to. Number 16, Dez Bryant. Dez Bryant is on a well-rounded offense. He's going to get his balls. Tony Romo will get him the balls. And Tony Romo has been pretty good in fantasy points and producing fantasy points. It's just nobody thinks that Tony Romo can get the job done at the Cowboys, but he's been proven to get points for receivers and himself in fantasy football. Number 17, Stephen Ridley. Now, if you go back to my first show, Stephen Ridley had 12 touchdowns last time, and the Patriots are among the leaders of rushing touchdowns every year. So I think this is a good pick at number 17. Now, number 18, I picked Jimmy Graham. Now, this, some of you may think is a leap, but I think this is a good value for Jimmy Graham to go. Tight end is the most differential from the number 1 to the number 2. I was looking at a draft sheet, and there's nobody that comes close to Jimmy Graham. So Jimmy Graham at 18, I think, is good pick. Now, I know some people would have picked Jimmy Graham in the first round, but I think I held off just about right. Number 19, Matt Forte. Now, this is a steal at 19. I think Forte in a PPR league is actually going to be pretty good this year with the new offense. I think he's been lighting it up in the preseason, and he's just going to do well at number 19th pick. I think that's a steal right there. 20, Frank Gore. Now, Frank Gore is on the older side, but he's always been another solid back from year to year. He's like a Marshawn Lynch, but a little lesser fantasy value-wise. I think this is a good pick right here, and it's if you already have a number 1 running back over Frank Gore is a solid number 2 back. I would take him as a number 2 back. Number 21, Brandon Marshall. Brandon Marshall is a good receiver. He gets a lot of catches, and you can't go wrong. That's Jay Cutler's favorite target on that team, and you just can't go wrong. 22, Chris Johnson. Now, I did not realize that Chris Johnson had like 1,200 rushing yards last year. Now, that's pretty good. And I didn't think that was going to happen. But Chris Johnson is inconsistent. He was inconsistent last year. He hasn't really been proven since his 2,000-yard season. And I just think this is an okay number 2 pick for if it's your number 2 back. If he's number 1 back, then that's tough luck. Number 23, Peyton Manning. Now, I think Peyton Manning went off the board way early. I think he should have dropped a little bit. I don't think Peyton Manning at the end of the second round is a good pick. I think you could have picked him up in the third round coming back around. And number 24, Demaryius Thomas. I love Demaryius Thomas. He is a solid wide receiver, and I think that he will do well this year. And now for my top 10 quarterbacks. I am going to give you number 1, Drew Brees. Like I said earlier, Drew Brees threw for 5,000 yards the past 3 years. And Drew Brees has a lot of talent surrounding him. He has Jimmy Graham. He has Lance Moore, Marcus Colston, and Darren Sproles. And not to mention, he's got Sean Payton back this year. So he doesn't have to worry about what's Sean Payton going to do. What would he do? No, he's going to be himself this year. Then number 2, I have Tom Brady. Tom Brady will throw for 4,500 plus yards and 30 plus touchdowns, and I have him ranked 2 for a reason. Despite losing all his weapons, he's got Danny Amendola, and he's got receivers that can catch the ball. He's going to put the ball in their hands, and I rank him at number 2 for another reason. The division sucks. The New England Patriots have got to have the easiest division. I don't care. Tom Brady at number 2. If Aaron Rodgers played Miami, Buffalo, and the Jets twice each, I would put Aaron Rodgers right here. But you know what? He doesn't. So that's why I have Tom Brady at 2. Now I have Aaron Rodgers number 3. Now the reason why I have him number 3 is because he's the most top-tier quarterback that gets hit the most. And not to mention, this offensive line, that Beluga guy is out. So they got to find somebody to fill that spot. And their offensive line was not that good last year. And he's just going to get hit more this year. So if he goes out this year with some sort of injury, it wouldn't surprise me. Now those are my 3 quarterbacks that are like my top tier, like the number 1. But Peyton Manning is just a slight below. And the only reason I say that is because Peyton Manning will give you 30 touchdowns. He'll give you 4,500 yards. But the only reason I have Peyton Manning is last year he didn't throw more than 3 touchdowns a game. He spread the ball around. He gave it to his running backs. I don't think he had a 4-touchdown game last year, if I can think of it. The reason why I have Drew Brees, Tom Brady, and Aaron Rodgers ahead of Peyton Manning is because those guys have upsides to throw for 5 touchdowns a game if they need to. I know Aaron Rodgers had a 6-touchdown game last year. And number 5, I have Cam Newton. Cam Newton will probably throw for about 4,000 yards, and he'll get his rushing touchdowns this year. He had 8 last year, and I think he'll do maybe more, maybe less. He doesn't have a lot of receivers, so maybe they're going to pound the box so they know that he's going to run. I don't know. But I think Cam Newton at 5 is a good pick. And then I got Matt Ryan at 6. Now, Matt Ryan at 6, I think he was a solid last year. I was able to pick him up in one of my drafts in like the 6th or 7th round, and it was a steal. And I'm going to flat out tell you, I think he's got more balance on this team with Steven Jackson. Steven Jackson's a better runner than Michael Turner. He's just got to make sure he's healthy. And then he's got Julio Jones, he's got Tony Gonzalez, and he's got Roddy White. He didn't lose any wide receivers. So I think the chemistry is there to where he could duplicate his season from last year. And number 7, I have Colin Kaepernick. Now, Colin Kaepernick has a lot of upside. If you took, like, a whole season, like, if you doubled what he did, like, when he played last year, he would have had a bunch of I think he had like 23 total touchdowns, like the 7 games he had. He could double that, maybe like 40 touchdowns this year. I don't know. You don't know what he's going to do, but he's looked terrible in the preseason, but I still think he has a lot of upside with the read option and everything at San Francisco. They've been a pretty solid team, and they got a good defense, so even if he does screw up a game or two, I think San Francisco's defense can hold for him, and it'll just make him look a little better when they win. Now, Tony Romo, everybody knocks Tony Romo. I know, like, during the football season, announcers and everybody are talking about how he can't get the job done there, but he has been a solid fantasy football quarterback for a while. Now, he hasn't been really like a top 5 player in a couple of years, but check this out. He's thrown 4,000 yards and about 30 touchdowns almost every single year. And now with Dez Bryant that emerged at a number 1 receiver, I think he could be better this year with a little upside. And number 9, I have Andrew Luck. Now, Andrew Luck was a rookie last year, and he threw for 4,000 yards, but he didn't have a lot of touchdowns. He's got Reggie Wayne. He's just got room for improvement this year, and he's a pocket passer. He doesn't run, although he did rush for 5 touchdowns last year. And then at 10, I have Russell Wilson. I love Russell Wilson's upside here. He's got Golden Tate, and he's got Sidney Rice. And now I know that Percy Harvin's hurt. I still think he's a number 10. He's got the same receivers he had last year. He's got Marshawn Lynch still. The chemistry is there. And last year when they let him air it out, he did pretty good. He could have probably doubled his touchdown numbers if they would have let him go in the first half of the season. I just think this is a number 10 pick here at the quarterback. And now for the Don't Bet On It segment. Don't bet on it. Don't bet on it. This is a segment that I'll predict the future in any sport. Don't bet on it. Don't bet on it. If you lose your money, don't come crying to me that I told you wrong and that I'm a dong. Don't bet on it. So as you know, this Don't Bet On It segment is where I will predict something crazy. Now this might not be as crazy as my first prediction, but I'm going to tell you what. I believe that the Cleveland Browns will make the playoffs this year. I believe that Brandon Weeden will be a top 10 quarterback at the end of this year. I believe that Jordan Cameron, the tight end for the Cleveland Browns, will be a top 5 tight end before the end of this year. And I believe that Trent Richardson will be at number 3 running back this year, or ranked 3, I should say. And I believe that Josh Gordon and Greg Little could emerge as top 20 receivers overall. And that is my predicament. And even if they make the playoffs and lose the wild card, my prediction is going to be right. So that will conclude it for the Don't Bet On It segment. Don't bet on it. And that will also conclude it for today's version of the Virgin Sportscast by me, Joshua Hervey. Thank you for listening. Bye-bye.